am I angry about it? No, not at all. Certainly don't take this video that way. It's just informational, just telling you what it costs me to own. Hey everybody, welcome back to iDrive Daily. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can learn more about what it's like to daily drive a C5 Corvette. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about cost of ownership for my third year owning this baby, and we're going to add it into the previous years so we can get a total 3-year running total. Total 3-year running total, yeah, because that Englishly makes sense. Compared to the past, there are two things I am not counting in this year, and am going to remove them from previous years so that we have a consistent number, is aftermarket parts. I realized that this year I spent quite a bit more than I did previous years, and a lot of the aftermarket parts are objective. In other words, not everyone's going to be doing the same thing. So I want to do a separate video on that to kind of talk a little bit about how much I spent on that. Similarly, I'm also excluding the winter tires I purchased for my C5 Corvette. You can check out the videos above to learn a little bit more about that, but I'm excluding that number because, again, not everyone's going to be running winter tires on their C5 Corvette. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So when you talk about cost of ownership, one of the big things you have to factor in is gasoline. Now, inevitably every year I mention the miles per gallon I achieved, and someone comments that I should have bought a Honda if I was concerned about that, and probably so. Again, I'm not entirely concerned about the miles per gallon, but I do put it out there as a frame of reference so you have an idea of how much I've burnt over the past year. So, all things considered, I drove a little over 10,000 miles. Despite quarantine, I was considered essential. So I did put quite a bit of mileage this past year on the car. And I spent about $1,200 in gasoline. So that achieves about 22 miles per gallon, and it was a little over $2.50 a gallon. Now, with that being said, in the past, I drove a lot into Jersey to get gasoline because of where my work was. It was fairly close. This past year, I didn't do that, so I did end up paying a lot more Philly prices. Despite that, it is down, which is nice, but unfortunately, at the time of this video, gas prices have already gone up, so it's gonna go right back up. The other thing I do want to mention is I didn't put quite as many miles on. I think I drove about 500 miles less, and that's just basically due to the fact that we had quarantine this past year. COVID basically prevented me from going anywhere other than to work and back from work. So just keep that in mind that I did drive just a hair less than previous. So this past year, I spent about $350 in service, give or take a little bit. That includes 2 oil changes and 1 coolant flush. The only thing I'm going to say is I honestly completely forgot that I had done a coolant flush shortly after purchasing this car. That was totally unnecessary. So I did spend a little bit over previous years, about $50, about $100 actually, I think, over previous years. And that was solely due to the fact that, well, unfortunately, I totally forgot about that coolant flush I did in the past. With maintenance, I spent a little over $300. Maintenance was mostly due to the fact that I replaced my battery this year. That was the largest chunk. The other 2 things that I'm including in that are the bypass for the steering column lock. Unfortunately, if you watch some of my earlier videos, I got my steering wheel locked on me, which sucks, but I had to bypass that. And I also looped in the CAG skip system, which is the 1 to 4 shift. I just kind of keeping them together because I bought them at the same time. So before we go on to depreciation, we're going to talk about insurance. Insurance this past year cost me $950, which is great because it is $300 less than previous years. I know a lot of people are saying, wow, that's expensive. Unfortunately, I pay Philly insurance, so yeah, a lot of that is factored in. I know there's cheaper insurance depending, this is all dependent on the area you're in. A lot of people tell me they pay $600 for the year or, $400 for 6 months. Unfortunately, I pay that Philly premium. So the final thing, we're going to talk about depreciation. So actually, compared to last year, my car has appreciated, which means it's gone up in value. It's actually worth about $500 more than it was last year, which is excellent because I put about 10,000 more miles on it. C5s are coming back in favor to some extent, so I am seeing more of them. So that's, to be expected. Grand scheme of things, though, it is still down about $4,000 from when I purchased it. It is what it is, unfortunately, what the market is. So let's add them all up. Over the past 3 years, it cost me about $12,000 to run this car directly. $16,000 if I include depreciation. Now, I am not throwing depreciation in automatically because I won't realize any of that loss until I actually sell the car. With 39,000 miles on the odometer, that cost me a little over 30 cents per mile, and it cost me about $11 per day if you guys are math nerds like I am. So yeah, I did spend $12,000 over the past 3 years on this Corvette. Am I angry about it? No, not at all. Certainly don't take this video that way. It's just informational, just telling you what it cost me to own. I'm actually really happy with my Corvette. I still like driving it every day. I still like getting in it, and punching it on the highway is always fun. But really, honestly, this car I don't think is wildly expensive to maintain compared to other cars out there. As a matter of fact, I think I spend as much on this as I did my MKZ. So that's just, just a comparison, something to keep in mind. Let me know what you guys think. Did I spend too much? Am I about right to what you spend? I know probably most of you don't drive 10,000 miles a year. That's why I include the per mile number, just to get an idea. So that's all I got for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end, hit that subscribe button or like this video, and I will see you on the next episode.